Good morning. Welcome to the Minnesota Bike Walk Leadership Network webinar. This is Wednesday, August 18th, 2021, and I'm Natalie Gilly with the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota. So welcome to the webinar. I will go ahead and share my screen here so we can kick things off. And I'm excited to introduce our speakers today. We have a spotlight on the community of Holdingford today. So many of you may have been to Holdingford before or heard about Holdingford, or maybe this is the first time you're learning about this community. So we have Kurt and Lily here that will tell you a little bit more about things going on there. So the title of the webinar is Bike to the Future, Retro Events, Art and Bikes in Holdingford. So today we're following in the footsteps of the July webinar, and Fergus Falls had presented in July and gave away a prize. So why not? Let's do that again today and then up the ante a little bit and give away 2 prizes. So if you'd like to go ahead and introduce your name and location in the chat box, and then we have 2 questions that you might participate in answering. Question number 1 is, high-wheeler bicycles were popular in the late 1800s, sometimes called the penny farthings. Where does that term come from? Question number 2, how long is the Holdingford covered bridge? So we're gonna have people introduce and then see what you know about a couple of these things locally related to the topics today. So I've just thought, Lily and Kurt, I've thought of another bonus question too. If we end up with a tiebreaker, we might be able to ask people. So we have folks from Rochester and Minneapolis, South Central. I've seen a few other folks on the line here as well that are from different parts of the state. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, and then our speakers kind of know who is in the room today for the presentation. I mentioned this is the Minnesota Bike Walk Leadership Network. Our purpose is to connect local bike walk leaders to share stories and ideas about how they're lifting up the walking and biking culture in their communities. We have a land acknowledgement statement, which I'll go ahead and read here. We want to acknowledge that we occupy the ancestral land of the several indigenous groups, including the Dakota, Ojibwe, Ho-Chunk, Cheyenne, Oto, Iowa, Meskwaki people. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. We affirm the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota's commitment to a partnership with Native nations and urban Indian communities. Despite centuries of colonial violence, this is still and always will be Indigenous land. Indigenous peoples are here, demonstrating innumerable talents and gifts in the midst of continued oppression. They must be celebrated and uplifted. You'll see on the slide here, there's a link, and Ted will put that in the chat box so you can look in the chat box if you have access to that. If you'd like to click on it, then you can find out what ancestral land that you are located on, or maybe a place that you like to ride bikes is located on. So feel free to check out that tool. Just a little housekeeping. We have webinars scheduled. Here's the schedule for the rest of the year already. September 15th on Wednesday, we will be spotlighting the community of Faribault. Then in October, moving to West Central Minnesota for Fargo-Moorhead Metro. And then November and December, again, third Wednesday of the month from 11:30 to 12:30 on Zoom. If you're a member of the Leadership Network, we appreciate your membership and thank you for joining us. If you're not yet and maybe received this email as a forward from someone else, feel free to join so that you can receive future communications and links to webinars. You can send an email to me, Natalie, at BikeMN.org. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers today. So this is an exciting topic. We're going to spotlight the community of Holdingford and talk about the retro bike ride in the Cycling Museum of Minnesota. Our first speaker I'm going to introduce here is Kurt Frank. He's been around bicycles for a while now. He's currently serving as a board member with the Cycling Museum of Minnesota, a rather new institution. It's a collection, CMM and its collection are housed in a space affectionately known as the Vault. You'll hear more about that in his presentation. On the lower level of the St. Mark's Cathedral in Loring Park area of Minneapolis. Kurt has also served terms on the MnDOT State Bicycle Advisory Committee, the Minnesota DNR, Recreational Trail Users Association, St. Cloud Area Planning Organization, Active Transportation Advisory Committee, the City of St. Cloud Transportation Advisory, and City of St. Cloud Transportation Advisory Committee. Kurt is a league cycling instructor and uses his bike for daily transportation. A retired firefighter, Kurt and his wife Carla live in St. Cloud with a family home in Roseville. Welcome to the webinar, Kurt.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, having me, and having the Cycling Museum of Minnesota present here a little bit. It was really an honor because I've attended these webinars in the past, and I couldn't imagine that I had anything to say, but I for sure do, especially about our cycling museum. Just a real quick about, I love the, I've been on the board for 3 years now. We have 6 board members currently. I wasn't on the board when they came up with this mission statement, but what jumped out to me immediately was that it's the hub for unlocking the transformational role of bicyclists. So it's, I said to the original charter members, I said, hub, locks, and rolling. I mean, that's all. Yeah, they put that in there on purpose. So we want to tie our mission right to the functions of the bicycle and stuff we're familiar with. But really important to me was actually the vision. As I read the vision statement, the word transitional jumps out at me because the bicycle has really transformed my life, and all to the good, I would say. It's not just about, I think of museums, I think of like static displays, like you walk by things and look at them and old stuff. And that's not really how I think about a cycling museum. I think about the machine as one, the people that use these machines as another. And that's really the beauty of the bicycle, is how people interact with this machine and how it transforms, how we transform our bikes to be these things of beauty and of art, and how they transform us. So if you can go to the next slide, then Natalie, thanks. Being that we're a museum, I just thought I'd start with just a little bit of history about us. We've started with an idea. I think some of you maybe know, if you don't, doesn't matter, I don't really. Brent Fuqua, actually, I misspelled his name, sorry, Brent. And Seth Statmiller, they started Recovery Bikes in Northeast Minneapolis about 8 years ago. They had an upstairs space, about 3,800 square feet, I guess, and they had an idea for, would be the germ of the idea for the cycling museum. Later that year at the Minnesota State Fair, and maybe some of you saw it, if you were, one of our board members, actually, Justin Anderson, an avid collector, had a display of some of his collection at the state fair, and those two things came together. And then starting in 2014, meetings were held, and they brought in some really great, made some great connections and brought in some people, and the Cycling Museum of Minnesota was incorporated. So you want to go to the next slide? Thank you. Where are you at? That's the question when I talk about the Cycling Museum, and I try to talk about it often when I'm out socially riding. They say, where are you at? Well, the first thing they usually say, it's like, oh, that's a great idea. Oh, well, yeah, it's a great idea, and it's a great institution. It needs some help. We're growing, but where we're located is, I say, affectionately referred to as the Vault. And as I was saying, originally started out Northeast, but for the last many years now, we've been in the Loring Park neighborhood, across from Loring Park and across from the Walker. So there's in the St. Mark's Episcopal Cathedral, there's a special space for us. If you want to go to the next slide, you can see it. It's a inauspicious, maybe that's the word, underwhelming entrance. It says welcome, though. I love the welcome sign above and that's our red door to our space. You see a couple bike racks there. That's always a welcome sign too, bike racks. And then in the bigger picture, you can see one of our racks that is storing, it does a better job of storing bikes than displaying them. We're a little tight on space. And so that's been a challenge for us at this new location. The next slide, there you can see. So we have, in that previous slide, you saw what is largely storage. And I would say we have probably 3 or 4 of those racks, which are maintaining some very beautiful works of art, some great bikes. But we also have a few displays. And here you can see those high wheelers. And there's a little bike there. It's a Gendron girls tricycle from the turn of the century. I don't know why it's a girl. It's very small. It's very delicate looking, in fact. So you can go to the next slide, actually, Natalie. As I said early on, the museums are sometimes thought of as like static displays and you know, kind of dusty old. No, I think the cycling museum lives, and I think we'll see it here a little bit later, especially in Lily's talk. What drew me to the cycling museum was the people, and how we celebrate that is through a series of speakers we call the Spokespeople series. I hope maybe some of you have attended. If you haven't, they cover the full range of cycling and cycling interests. Something that would appeal to you without a doubt. In the past, we've had Gary Showquist, hopefully you know him from Quality Bikes, and he spoke about the Minnesota mountain bike series, a high school mountain bike series. We've had Eric Noreen, who was from Peacock Groove. He was a builder. He spoke for an hour and a half, whatever, on his specialty of building kind of unique bicycles. Caitlin Starr Cohen gave a talk. I missed this one, but it's on wheel women in the cycling dress of the 19th century. And then another presentation in the past had been a U of M professor, Christine Bachman Sanders, and she spoke of the history of the site of bicycles and how they the democratizing technology that a bicycle is, how it's welcoming to all, and especially women and people of color at that time. What a revolutionary machine it is, or it was. I think we kind of take that for granted now, 100 plus years in. Was pretty disappointed. We had such a great lineup for 2019 for our Spokespeople series. One, for example, is Chris Spalding. He was Minnesota State College's. In Red Wing, they have, probably familiar with that too. Maybe you've had him on here, I don't know. Bicycle design and fabrication course that they teach at the Red Wing at the Technical Community College down there. And then the one I've been following her for a couple of years now, and I was really looking forward to, but we didn't get it done last year, was Alexandra Hutchins, a Tour Divide champion. And I think she goes to UND, a native woman that just crushes this bike rides. I really was, anyway, hopefully that will come back around. The spokesperson series is a very popular. In the picture there is Nina Clark, our past chair of the board, introducing, as everybody in the state should know, Louis Moore and Walter Griffin, as they were giving a presentation on the Major Taylor Bike Club at one of our events. These events were held at largely in a beautiful kind of amphitheater, kind of a theater, if you would, at St. Mark's Cathedral, in a space we can use there. But we've also done some of them at Perennial Cycle. We held one 2 years ago, I guess now. And we held a similar thing out to Art in Motion out in Holdingford on the Lake Wobegon Trail history this last month. So I'll talk about that maybe in a minute. So if you want to click the slide, Natalie. Something we've done in the past that really also connects people and their bikes and the history of it, and as you can see, the art of it, is the BYOB event. It's largely been held out in the parking lot right outside our vault, and just a welcome, open invitation to anybody to bring their bike. We asked them to fill a little tag about what it is, where they got it, what they like about it, maybe, you know, and then there's, I think, a couple different votes and an award, and maybe they get a t-shirt too. So, but it's super popular for passionate people to hang around or look at their bike, show their bike off, and look at what could be a better day than that. So, and we also did a version of this, and Lily will speak to that too, Up to Art in Motion, partnered with Art in Motion in Holdingford for this summer. Another, if you can click again, Natalie, thank you. Another thing Cycling Museum of Minnesota did in the past couple of years was we commissioned an artist, Nancy Muzinguzzi, to take photos. I think we have 13 different people, and it's just a photo of them in their bike or them in their in a defining background, I guess. And it's again, we also wrapped a spokesperson thing around this, as we asked some of these subjects of these photos to come and speak about their passion and their interest in biking. And it was really great. So the photo here is maybe it's Louis. It looks like Louis Moore again. He's so photogenic. And maybe Cassie Jury, maybe I can't. Anyway, they spoke. We ran some. This was held at the Hennepin History Museum, which is Kitty Corner from the MIA. So that was where this exhibit was held. It was really wonderful. It went for 3 months, and then it was extended for 3 more months. It was pretty popular. And again, I'll talk a little bit, maybe Lily will talk about this in a minute too. So it was also exhibited at Art in Motion later. So one more click, please. So a CMM Outstate, I entitled this because when I joined the Cycling Museum of Minnesota board 3-4 years ago, whatever, I was we strive for diversity and in many different ways. But when I got there, I found I was like riding the North Star rail down to meetings and stuff like that. I found I was my diversity that I brought was I was the outstate member. I was the only person that didn't live outside of 7 counties, maybe 2 counties down in the cities. And so I really wanted to celebrate that second M, that Minnesota part of cycling. I think it's real easy bicycle to look just at where we ride and what we see every day. But I think that it's a statewide kind of beauty to it. So, and this was really important to the Cycling Museum. I can't thank Greg Consor and Lily Bretker enough for hosting us at the Art in Motion in Holdingford this last month, or this last season, bicycling season for them, I guess. It was really great. We were able to do a lot. And I think we were constrained so much by our doors to the vault were locked up tight. We didn't have a bring your old bike event. We didn't. So now with kind of being able to get out in the county and being a partner and engaged and with the Art in Motion was a super big deal. That's a picture of one of our bikes above the doorway at the cafe. At Boho Cafe is located at Art in Motion. You get something to eat while you get your art on. So yeah, you were right, Natalie. Next, the encouragement. I highlighted something, and I'm almost done here. I highlighted some things that were about the museum, the vault, the spokesperson, the exhibits, but we also participated in the cycle trivia that we've held every year at the Fair State Brewing in Northeast. It's kind of a fun night just to sit around and meet and be together. Also, we table different events. Maybe be a bike night is where I first came in contact with the Cycling Museum. I also participated in Northern Spark. We had a presence there. If you remember that event over the last pre-COVID times, there were several Northern Sparks. mixed. We did some kind of creative things too. We came up in this with a sound, a playlist, and a coloring book and those kind of things as we're striving to kind of be relevant in the fact that we couldn't show up anywhere in the last 18 months or so. And then to the fundraising, every year we would have a fundraiser. We started with a Let's Get Rolling to start out, the basis for our organization. They had very successful BMX kind of centric rad fundraiser. And then a couple years ago over in St. Paul, I think we had this high vis that was, and so as you can 14, 17, we're bound to have another look in your boxes. You'll be getting probably an invitation from us or some sort of awareness for a fundraiser in the next year or so. So we hope you can. Next one, Natalie. And then, yeah, just the contact. And as I say, all of this, I mean, you can have people with bikes and old bikes and like old bikes, but all of this stuff that's taken place or any success the Cycling Museum has had, especially a good example is the partnership with Art in Motion, as I hand this off to Lily here in just a second, has been due to the partnerships and the connections and the people that we know. It was my outstate membership on Cycling Museum and Nina, our former chair, knowing somebody up here who knew them, and this all worked out so well to give us a foothold outstate. And I hope you see us in Moorhead and Rochester and Duluth and Mankato and Fairmont and all over the state over the next few years. I really like this to be a statewide, to be our cycling museum. And with that, I will answer any questions. Thank you. I haven't been reading the chat box, so if somebody wants to clue me in, I'll answer some questions if we have time, Natalie.
Thanks, Kurt. This was a great presentation, and I'm not sure how many people on the webinar here know about this Cycling Museum in Minnesota. Now people have heard about it and learned a little bit more. I did post a comment in the chat box that indicated a summary of the answers submitted for the penny farthing question. If you would like to add a drum roll and a awarding of the prize to someone, as far as giving away a Cycling Museum in Minnesota sweatshirts. So I wanted to make sure I prompted that, and then we can take questions as well. That's fine. I think then Lily will hold the second prize giveaway till the end of Lily's presentation. But Kurt, did anyone get it right here? As far as the
early
answer?
on, I picked the name Marty Cormack out as the winner. Sorry for anybody else that didn't win. Yeah, so we'll get together and we'll get Marty a sweatshirt, CMM sweatshirt. Awesome. And hopefully it cools down enough at some point this year that you can wear sweatshirts again.
Very good. Well, we'll pause for a moment here. We have time for a few questions. If anyone on the call would like to ask Kurt a question, if you would like to unmute yourself, everyone goes automatically on mute when you join the webinar, so we don't have any distractions, but feel free to unmute and ask a question if you would like to ask anything of Kurt.
What's a farthing?
So a penny farthing. A farthing is, I think a penny is the bigger coin and the farthing is a smaller coin. So it's an English, yeah, it's an old English coin before they went euro, and then I think they went back. Anyway, it's the smaller English coin, I believe.
And Kurt, did you want to mention the connection with the Holdingford retro ride and the penny farthing?
Well, just our founding member Justin is a penny farthing rider, a high wheeler rider, and then there was as we had the retro ride, and I think probably Lily maybe better speak to that. So some great photos anyway. There was all the bikes at the retro ride in Holdingford, there was a high wheeler in the group, and it was kind of fun to. That's a real direct drive single speed bike there when you get to a high wheeler.
Very cool. It's fun to hear about that. You know, we talk about encouraging people to ride bikes and how do you get more people on bikes, and this is a pretty fun way. So thank you, Kurt. And does anyone else have a question for Kurt? Ted is providing support in the chat box today. So is there anything, Ted, in the chat box that I may have scrolled past here that we might ask Kurt?
I think we covered most of it. I was just going to say that I was us at BikeMN, we were kind of inspired by some of the coloring pages that are offered. It's one of the menu items on the Cycling Museum's website, and so we kind of offered some of those for some holiday stuff. So there's a lot of fun stuff on the website to check out for sure.
And I guess looking forward, and especially with the challenges last year, and something we would, I mean, as we try to reach out state and reach more people, I think we're going to try to expand our web presence and stuff too. So while we have a few, I know I may be like bicyclists better than bicycles, but there are people that just love bicycles. And so we're hoping to really up our presence and our photos and our displays of bicycles on our web as well.
Awesome. Thanks for bringing it up, Ted, too, just to kind of come full circle with how these different programs, help each other out, and we can share ideas and strategies. Part of the reason that we gather as a network here statewide, and Kurt mentioned that a couple of times, how important it is to recognize the statewide connections that we have here and the work that's going on throughout Minnesota. And today, is kind of a testament to that by spotlighting the community of Holdingford. So, we'll go ahead and I think for now hold any additional questions for Kurt to the end of the webinar, and we'll go ahead and pivot to our second speaker at this point. So we do have a second speaker today, Lily Brutger from Holdingford. She works at the art and events coordinator at Art in Motion on the Lake Wobegon Trail, where her many passions for art, bicycling, the land, and food coalesces under one roof. This summer, she has been working on programming at Art in Motion to encourage bicycle and trail recreation and safety in collaborative partnerships with the Cycling Museum of Minnesota, the Central Care Bike Fleet, the Walk Bike Fun Ambassador Curriculum, and community members. Catch her in her free time pedaling her bike down the Lake Wobegon Trail and back roads wearing the orange butterfly Art in Motion jersey. Welcome to the webinar, Lily.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for that lovely introduction. I feel really grateful and honored to be invited on a webinar about biking, which was kind of like my, side passion, my mental health escape until I started working here at Art in Motion, and it was an opportunity to make it more intentional and forward a mission of just simply having fun and enjoying biking and enjoying the trail and building a synergy between those things. So today I'd like to just talk a little bit about Art in Motion, explain what it is, what our mission is here on the trail in Holdingford, as well as talk about our bike specific programs, a lot of which Kurt had mentioned previously in his presentation that we were able to put forward this year, and what we kind of envision for Art in Motion as we learn and grow for the future. So Art in Motion is a gallery cafe space that serves all your favorite cafe foods, including craft beer and ice cream. But we're also located on over 20 acres of land, including pollinator plant fields, walking paths, a residency house, an art studio, a fine art gallery, a labyrinth in progress, and much more. And we are right off the Lake Wobegon Trail. We are here to encourage a healthy, connected life through movement, nature, food, art, and each other. We opened in July of 2020 and then closed for the season in November. And then we reopened with some gusto in April of this year and are slowly easing into the fall as we speak, with most of our largest programs behind us. As of last week, we kind of finished up a few things that were pretty big. Next slide, please. As I said previously, we are located right on the trail. The photo is a view of Art in Motion from the trail, and then we're about half a mile north of the Holdingford trailhead, if you're familiar with that space. We do have a trail access, so you can literally just bike right up to the building. And this building was made for the trail people. This building was made for this purpose, and to encourage the usage of the trail and encourage creativity and connectivity. The owner and person who created this concept, his name is Greg Consor, and he's an avid bicyclist, and he dreamed up this concept as he was on the trail, and he saw a for sale sign on the property and was like, what can I do here in my hometown as I come back, you know, after doing my career, come back to my hometown and give back with something really cool that will benefit Holdingford community, but also benefit the biking community and encourage some micro tourism in this area. Next slide. When I started this job in June of 2020, I had just graduated my undergrad via a webinar and with a degree in studio art and art history. It was a really uncertain time, and we still had a lot of work to do. We had an entire program to build, and this was my first like career job. We were basically just running on this vision of a space that would be welcoming, accessible, encourage a creative, active, healthy life. And it was designed with that focus in mind. So this wasn't something that like grew slowly. It was something that was intentionally put on this place. And it was a challenge during a pandemic, but with all of our outdoor space we had, we found that people felt pretty safe here, even in the pandemic. And there was a resounding positive response for the possibilities and programs that we were running. The largest task that I'm responsible for in my position is the gallery space. And galleries, kind of like Kurt was talking about, museums tend to have a reputation of being stuffy and slow or inaccessible for people who are not artists or art seekers. People don't often seek out a gallery if they are not a gallery seeker. But with this gallery, as you can see here, we have our garage door open, looking right into the gallery, people that have literally biked right up to the space. And then beyond that is the cafe. And so we have this exciting captive audience of people who get to come and see art, and it meets them where they're at. And same with biking. People come here to see art or eat, and they realize, oh, I could come and bike here and then get a snack afterwards or see some art. So literally there's not really a fear here. And that's what makes this gallery accessible. Next slide, please. This is a view from the gallery looking into the dining room. The space is open concept. It's well lit. There's plenty of windows highlighting the outdoor space as much as the indoor space. And you can see the CMM bikes displayed on the doorways. There's 5 on top the main door and then 1 on top the kitchen door. It's designed to have a library feel, as Greg says sometimes, to encourage people to connect with each other, slow down, and stay a while. People often come to this space and they spend multiple hours, you know, reading a book, listening to live music, looking at the art, making art, talking with their friends, working on their laptop, whatever it is. Next slide, please. Greg had this vision for like what art in motion could be and can be. And myself as an art scholar, a lover of a good bike ride in nature, a foodie, an environmentalist, I easily shared that vision for this place. And it wasn't something that I had to think too hard to understand. It's a place that expresses this synergy that I feel is in biking, art, food, nature, creativity. After we closed for the first kind of trial summer, we spent the winter really thinking on what we wanted to do going forward, what we wanted to do in 2021, what we could do in 2021, and something that we wanted to highlight more that we weren't able to in that first year, since it was kind of just like, okay, let's throw something at the wall and see what sticks, was to highlight biking and highlight how we can make biking fun here, encourage people to try it, encourage people to use biking to try art, and vice versa, and explore that kind of triangle. And so that's kind of when CMM came involved. And I met Kurt through a spontaneous Zoom meeting with Heidi Jube, and kind of learned about this Cycling Museum of Minnesota. And a program I wanted to put together was a bike exhibit, like an art exhibit about biking, but also to highlight, you know, exactly what Nancy Musinguzzi did with these photos is the diversity in cycling, and that it's not just, you know, white guys that like to go fast on the trail and wear fancy jerseys and ride fancy bikes. You know, that it's everyone loves to bike. Kids love to bike, everyone has fun on bikes, but there's a point in life when sometimes it becomes intimidating and you feel like you can't claim that identity for your own. So that was something I wanted to do. And they had this exhibit. And I was like, well, we absolutely have to have that in our gallery. Something Greg wanted was some cool old bikes above the door. And I'm like, well, CMM has some cool old bikes that we can probably put above the door. And then to do some more rides. And CMM had, you know, they weren't able to put together some of their events in 2020. And we're like, well, let's just partner on these events and pull them out into rural Holdingford on this beautiful stretch of trail. And so thus the LifeCYCLE exhibit came to our gallery, the bikes came to the gallery, and then we put together a retro ride or a BYOB event, as well as some other presentations. Another thing that Kurt introduced me to was the Centricare Bike Fleet, a program I wanted to, I think we can probably do the next slide actually. I'm kind of going off script here. Bike Fleet. Something I wanted to do is create some more accessibility to biking. You know, what if you don't have a bike? What if you don't live somewhere where you can access a trail easily? How can I get some kids out here to ride a bike safely on a trail and like get bikes? But Centricare has this fleet of like 48 bikes that you can just use. You have to do a lot of work to get it, but like Kurt introduced me to that. And so I started that process, and it was kind of a last minute program that was put together, but it was successful for what it was. And I was able to host 2 field trips with Holdingford schools using the bike fleet and my ambassadors bike walk fun ambassadors training program that I did to teach them helmet safety, basic road safety, rules of the road, how to check your bike to make sure it works, how to pump up the tires to make sure they're like functional for riding. And then we did a ride. And on those field trips as well, next slide, please. They looked at the art in the gallery, the LifeCYCLE exhibit. The middle schoolers, they actually had to do like a paper about one of the people in the exhibit and talk about their own bike identity. And then we also made these pinwheels with community member Susan Egbers, who she is widowed from her husband, John Egbers, who was killed in 2018 during his Trans-American bike ride. And he was a very well-loved member of the Central Minnesota biking community, and his loss was really created a ripple effect across the area. And every year she puts together some sort of memorial for him. And this year she came up to me and approached me with this idea of an installation on our front lawn of 857 pinwheels and butterflies. And in collaboration, I asked, could we make this an art piece? Can this be something that the community has to build? Like they build the pinwheels, like they make them. And so the students at the field trips and community members throughout Bike Week built we had half butterflies, half pinwheels. They built like 450 pinwheels and decorated them all uniquely. And then we installed them on the front lawn. And Bicycling Magazine actually came out and photographed and did a story on this piece as well. And they're really joyful looking and happy, and they dance in the breeze, but then it's a haunting visualization of how many people actually were killed in 2018, which was the deadliest year on American roads. And it really isn't much better than that. Like every year in succession, the amount of cyclists that are killed on the roads is staggering. And when you see them all out there, you think every single one of those is a human being, a human life. What can we do to make our roads safer? How can we make cyclists seen and be seen? how can we do that? It literally and metaphorically to see, that was kind of my mission with these programs, was my personal mission was, how do we make people feel seen and be seen on a bike? Literally, like they're wearing bright colors, they're visible to cars. But also, how do you make people feel like they can claim a bicyclist identity? And I think the art exhibit and then this and the bike fleet, hopefully, you know, in theory, work together to have that happen. Next slide, please. The retro ride, and Kurt had talked about this in brief. And essentially what we did for the retro ride was we hosted a vintage bike show, kind of like a car show, but like vintage bikes. We think we had about 30 bikes that came out. One was a penny farthing. One was an old Harley Davidson that actually was the winner, the favorite bike. And we did learn we should probably have categories, because it's hard to compare bikes. Like it's like comparing apples to oranges sometimes, like restored bike, not restored bike, really funky looking bike, or really like interesting story bike. I don't know. And then after the bike show, people went on a trail ride to Bolus or however far they got and back. Some people rode their old bike. Some people rode their favorite bike. Some people rode a Centricare Bike Fleet bike on that. And it was a really great day, and people really had fun connecting with each other, talking about old bikes, sharing stories of the bikes that their parents rode, and just, you know, what a bike did for like transportation, but also recreation and fun and cool colors and different eras. And it was just a fun, nerdy Saturday, and we had really good weather for it. Next slide. The last bit of Bike Week, we did hold a few similar to like the spokespeople events, just presentations for education, something that like we're really all about fun, but also real about lifelong learning and learning about stuff. And so we hosted a Lake Wobegon Trail presentation, which had panelists from the Lake Wobegon Trail organization, but also from the Stearns County like Parks and Recreation organization as well. And they talked about the future plans for the Lake Wobegon Trail, which might hopefully, if we can get all the funding and stuff for it, create a 400-mile loop around the state, which many of you probably are already familiar with, but it was news to me, and I think that's super cool. And really good like tourism opportunity that like Minnesotans could, and small towns especially, could capitalize on to bring some revitalization to their town. And so we had that presentation, and then we also had George Maurer, who is he kind of embodies, I think for Greg especially, the idea of like art in motion, because he is a composer for music, and he writes music and performs music, but he also is an adventure cyclist and does motivational speaking about his adventure cycling that he got into halfway through his life. He wasn't really a cyclist to begin with, but then he ended up like riding across the country and riding around Iceland and composing music and things like that. And so he presented on some of the stuff that he's done that was July 31st. Author Heath Ryan was also here. He was a good friend of Susan Egber's, and he was researching the John Egber's death on the road, and spending time here at Art in Motion while Susan was here all week as well, and talking with people. And he also did a presentation on a quick little what was going on at the pinwheels, but also, you know, to look for cyclists when you're on the roads, and cyclists likewise do everything in your power to be safe when you're riding. Next slide, please. So overall, Bike Week was a success. It was a really great tool for learning how and what we can do better next year for Bike Week, or for biking in general. Something we want to expand upon is our bike fleet usage. Hopefully next year I have like a little bit more like planned out in advance, and like can do some more greater outreach to like the urban communities that really don't have access to coming to Holdingford to ride their bike on the trail. And improve and expand upon the retro ride. I think it was a really fun event, but there's definitely room to grow in everything, and to continue to diversify the image of the biker that we're presenting to our public through our programs. through the art and through other events that we're hosting, and just in general encourage empowered riders, safe and seen riders. We don't really do races here at Art in Motion. Even our like fun runs and stuff are not races. We're just going, we want slow living, we want enjoyment, appreciation, and care for biking and the environment. And to encourage us this simple pleasure and the childlike joy of biking. So, thank you. That is all.
Thank you, Lily. There was so many visuals and you gave such a depth of information. In addition to just Holdingford, did everyone on this call, had you heard of Holdingford? Had you known there was so much going on at Art in Motion, do you guys have any questions for Lily, either in the chat box or if you want to unmute and ask a question? And then I did post up the collective answers from the question about how long the Holdingford Bridge is in a chat box. If you want to take a look in that, Lily, as we're just collecting questions here and see who we might award as the winners.
The correct answer is right on the nose, and did you Google it? Is 186 feet long. So that one, if you want to send me, I'll drop my email in the chat, your address, and I can mail you a Retro Ride t-shirt. And also if people want to propose any programs, I mean, I'm the person who does the programs basically. So you just email me directly and be like, I want to do a thing at your place. Like, okay, let's do it,
Great.
Thanks, Lily. And the winner is Tina Moen from Wabasha. So congratulations, Tina. So that would be the winner of the Retro Ride t-shirt. So
Lily, I have a question. This is Dorian from BikeMN. And, that is such a beautiful place and such a cool program. I'm sure others around the state would love to know how it came to be. Was there a big grant? Did you have a fundraising campaign? Do you have a mortgage? Do you have all of the above? It's a beautiful space and I'm sure it costs lots of money.
It does. So the owner, Greg Consor, he had a very successful career. And although this is not, it is a private for-profit business. We run kind of like a charity. He's really generous and he's given this place to the community as a space to coalesce. My job is and the job of the other manager and at the kitchen and our staff is to figure out how we can make our programs break even. And, we don't need to necessarily be profitable, but at least to break. And the original bill was footed by Greg. This is his place,
Yeah, no, that's wonderful that you have a major donor in the community that made that happen.
Yeah.
And that happens in other communities. So I just wanted to make sure that people are aware of that and are sharing their big idea. And a major donor might just say, I love your big idea. I'd like to help make it happen.
Exactly. No, it really does show like that, there is money floating around. You just need, and it's hard to get grants and stuff, especially ones big enough to do something like this. And then the amount of work that goes into even a tiny grant, like I'm running one grant this year and it is so much work. It's almost not even worth it. But it is really helpful when you just have that person who's invested in the vision that you're trying to put forward. And I think it's been inspiring to other people in the area that have been here and have seen what Greg's doing and what we're doing here. And they're getting inspired like, oh, we can have nice things. We just have to pay for it,
So we have some chat in the chat box about the potential new winner of the Retro Ride t-shirt due to the fact that there was Googling involved. So Lily, I'll let you make the call on this one, but I did share in the chat box the runner-up in case you wanted to decide or potentially give a prize to both. What would you like to do, Lily?
I don't know. I mean, I think the runner-up, Dan, definitely deserves a t-shirt. I mean, how can I penalize someone for being resourceful?
And then I guess, Dorian has added in the chat box here too. I had chatted, he did also guess and had recused himself from the prize due to being BikeMN staff. So kudos also there for Dorian as having a very close answer. So
everyone gets a shirt.
Dorian, Tina, and Dan. Do we have a collective winners here? All right, this is cool. I mean, this retro bike ride sounds like it was so awesome, and it's cool to see all those bikes lined up and see all these unique bikes that people brought out and were riding, and the partnership with the bike fleet and Central Care and CMM. And it's cool to hear, Lily, that you've taken your Walk Bike Fun ambassadors training to heart and are implementing it, in the middle of a challenging year, and you didn't miss a beat. So this is really great to see. So anyone who's on the call today that's on this webinar, that's tuning in statewide here in Minnesota, that thinks that, our community only has X number of people in the community, or we're small, or we're not close to the metro, or whatever the reason is that you might think that you can't pull off big things like this. Like Dorian said, you put it out there, and there are some major donors out there, and this is great to hear this story. And I would encourage you to find creative ways to get people riding bikes. And like Lily mentioned, she shared that she can be a resource to you if you'd like to reach out to her as well. You'll see the contact information on the screen.
Absolutely can. We have like 700 people in this town, and they just keep coming out of the woodwork. It's amazing. We've made so many friends.
That's great. It's wonderful to see. And in the chat box too, I don't know if you saw this, Lily, there's quite a few people who have mentioned that they have rode over the Holdingford Bridge more than once. So, folks who are on this webinar have been to the location you're talking about, and maybe learned a little bit about Art in Motion today, and may stop in. If otherwise, they may have just continued to ride. So this is great to hear about this, that this exists in Minnesota. So I do want to pause for a moment here. And I know, Dorian, you've engaged in some of the dialogue today, and I am going to give the mic back to Dorian again here to share a little bit about a couple of the next slides here and an update from the Hill. So Dorian, welcome to the webinar.
Thanks, Natalie. And in a second, I'm hoping you'll let me share my screen. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that the in-person rides are back. The St. Paul Classic is happening, but the registration is limited to 2,000 because we couldn't use some of the facilities, or we couldn't use the facility at St. Thomas that we used to use. So instead of 6,000 people, we're going with 2,000. So it's filling up fast. And the Mankato River Ramble is happening just the same way as it always has, same route. And if you have not, speaking of art, if you have not seen the mural on the grain silos in downtown Mankato along the river, they're spectacular. And there's a great story behind them. So I would encourage you to come. And Natalie, can I share my screen and just do a quick update about what's going on in DC and the state capitol?
Absolutely, go for it. I've stopped sharing my screen, so you can just click share screen on the bottom and then begin sharing your screen.
All right, let's see. That's not exactly the one that I wanted, but anyway, you're seeing the active transportation slide.
There's a slide that I'm seeing that says update solicitation open October 4th.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I'm sorry, I've got too many. Yeah. So anyway, MnDOT is going to be getting a lot of money for their active transportation grant program, $5 million from the Minnesota legislature. And then the bill that passed in Congress or passed the United States Senate just a week ago, still has to be passed by the House, but it's supported by the president, is going to include a 70% increase for the Transportation Alternatives Program. So MnDOT will have a ton of money. And let's see, I got to find it. This is the one I wanted to share. And so anyway, the 2020 bonding bill had 3 million for safe routes to school. And then the 2021 transportation bill had 5 million for safe routes to school and 5 million for active transportation. And the key there is that the bonding bill money is for infrastructure only, but the 2021 money was general fund money, so MnDOT can do with it whatever they want. And so it'll include all 5 E's. So it'll include education, encouragement, and all the other stuff there. So, and this is the big news from Washington, D.C. The widely reported $1 billion bipartisan bill, as I said, had 70% more, but Lily and Susan Egbers and will be especially, and all bicyclists will be especially happy to know that that bill has more safety provisions than any time before. It requires a vulnerable user safety assessment and provides significantly more safety money for biking and walking, including making safe routes to school eligible for public safety funding. And in the past, Minnesota has just spent a couple percent of their public safety money on biking and walking. The majority has been spent on drunk driving, seat belts, and now hands-free cell phone. And that's money that comes from the federal government. So they have to do what Congress says. It hasn't passed yet, but it is likely to pass. There's a lot of momentum, likely to pass before the end of September. So I won't go into any more detail on that stuff. There's other stuff in the not bipartisan bill that they're fighting over called reconciliation. And I asked Kelly Corbin to quickly pop in the links to the solicitation, or you can just find them on the MnDOT bicycling or active transportation or safe routes to school website. I'm sure it wouldn't take you long to find them by going there, but as you can see, Kelly put those in the chat box. So, and I think I'm done sharing screen, so you can take it over, Natalie.
Thanks, Dorian. I appreciate the updates from the Hill here, and it's big news. So it's great to hear about that and celebrate that, and you know, look for the opportunity to apply for infrastructure and non-infrastructure money in 2022. So thank you so much to Kurt and Lily today for being our speakers and showcasing the spotlight on Holdingford as our community today. And we really appreciate your time and all that you put into preparing these slides to share with us and telling these stories. So hopefully you caught their contact information as they were sharing their screens. Feel free to reach out if you have any follow-up questions. And we will close out the webinar for today. Thank you so much for joining our August webinar, and hopefully we'll see you back here in September.